Hello, hello, hello. Happy Friday, everybody.
Happy Friday.
Okay, this is May the 23rd. This is Friday. We are approaching Memorial Day weekend, so the summer is almost here.
Almost here. Can you believe it's the end of the month already?
Before you know, we're going to be talking about Thanksgiving and Christmas again. Like, it's just a whole cycle.
Say it ain't so.
Okay, and so anyway, I am Keisha. I'm one half of the host of the Regal Mindset Podcast show. Jay?
And I am Joy, the coach, and I am the other half of the Regal Mindset Show. And we got a show for you tonight.
Absolutely, we do. We're talking about self love.
Oh, God. Are you ready for this?
Yeah, I'm excited.
I'm excited too, because
Yeah,
I
I'm
think we
excited.
got some really good perspectives that a lot of people don't even take in consideration when it comes down to self love.
Yeah, of course not. Listen, I think that it is important and you have to be intentional about it,
Hmm.
right? It can't just be a one time, one off, here and there type of thing. We've got to be intentional about it. I've come to the conclusion myself that there's been times or points within my life that I didn't necessarily put me first, right?
Hmm.
The self care was lacking in that portion of my life. And I had to be intentional about incorporating it more and in various areas of my life. So
Right,
I'm
right.
excited for this conversation.
So let's start it out. Let me ask you
Yeah.
this. How do you define self-love?
Okay. So for me, that looked like, so let me define it first and then I'll give you examples of what
Okay.
it looked like for me. Taking more time at putting me first, right?
Hmm.
And loving on me, spending time with me, being okay with being alone, and even though I'm married, I have a whole family. There's times where I have to prioritize me
Hmm.
versus everyone else, right? So sometimes I feel like it's a difficult balance when you're the head of the household to be intentional about that
Right,
part, right? Because
right,
if I'm not good, then that may filter off, or it does, I'll say
right.
filter off into everyone else's life, their energy, their spirit, and how they may conduct themselves throughout, their day, and so on and so forth. So I had to take ownership and accountability in terms of prioritizing me first,
Right, right.
right? That's my mental, that's my finances, that's my spiritual, that's my physical health, right?
Hmm.
We're all getting older. So I specifically have to be more mindful about the types of things that I eat, right? That's a part
Hmm.
of self-love.
Is it? It's
Oh yes, for
yeah,
me. Um,
exactly.
it's about managing the medicines that I do have, and how can I get to a place where I can get off of those medicines safely, right?
Hmm.
And living a more disciplined, physical, healthy life.
Right,
All of that plays into, for me, self-love,
right.
right? So now what does that look like for me? Again, a few years ago, or maybe 2 years ago, I began being more intentional about what that would look like, right? Because it's
Hmm.
one thing to say, okay, I'm going to make these changes, these behavioral changes, but how would that show up in my life? So as a masculine presenting person, I didn't necessarily find the need to make it to the what is it, the mani and the petties all the time, right?
Hmm.
I would go sometimes with my wife and maybe take care of hers, but it wasn't like, that's not, it's not that it's too girly, but it wasn't necessarily a part of my routine.
Right, 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 right.
I incorporated it and made it a part of my routine, right? There's
Hmm.
still some things that I'm a little comfortable with. I'm sorry. I'm not quite there with the color on the nails. I
Me
don't know
neither.
if I'll ever get there,
No,
right?
me neither.
But that became a part of my routine, of my
Hmm.
form of self-love, being intentional about prioritizing my mental health, right? If there were
Hmm.
things going on within my life, I made it a point to reach out to a therapist or a coach or a psychologist, or whatever the situation called for, to make sure that I was in a
Hmm.
good mental space, right?
Right.
Spiritually, that's always a journey, right? How
Hmm.
do you become closer to your higher power, right? And activate the higher power within, right?
Hmm.
For me, again, that's all a part of the becoming me process within my own clothing line, right?
Right,
So
right.
all of these things are important and intentional for me, and I don't know what or how life would be without it.
I love that.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And I think a lot of people capture and define self love as a simple mani and petty.
Ah.
I think they define it as the little things you do for yourself, and it's so far from that. When it comes down to self love, I don't have an exact definition, but I do have actions that would establish a self love, boundaries,
Oh,
self love,
okay. I love that.
because a lot of us struggle with boundaries. So being able to say, I'm not okay with that, and say it out loud,
Hmm.
because we can say it in our head and then next thing you know, we'll do it just because, no, I'm not okay with that. And then here's why. And if you can't respect that, that's your problem. And you can be removed from, my peace. And a lot of people I've heard, people on the internet, or I'm claiming my peace. You don't even know what peace is to even establish it. Because you're trying to build a wall when you don't even have to have bricks to build the wall. You literally can use your words. I won't do that. Even when it comes down to love, it's okay to get divorced, because that is self-love. If you can be in the place to say, you know what, this relationship is not serving me. How is it not serving you? Because I don't feel supported, and I've given you multiple times to fix it.
Hmm.
Here's an example. Here's an example. Here's an example. Maybe this is not the right relationship for us, because we have the idea, I'm going to show you how to love me. Let's take it a little bit further. You can't show somebody how to love you if you're not loving yourself, because you didn't set the boundary.
Hmm.
You didn't set the standard. It's not about, oh, I'm going to go buy me flowers because I want somebody to see. We're so far beyond flowers. It starts with how you show up and how you advocate for yourself in the workplace, at home, even in church. If you go to church and you're the topic every Sunday, they're not serving you. So it's a holistic approach to how you regard yourself and how you do not sacrifice yourself. And it's more than a $30. My pedicure is $80 plus tip, because I go for the work. You're gonna work on these. But at the end of the day, it's like, hey, I need to make sure that I'm structuring life, whether it's me getting up a little early in the morning and giving myself 10 minutes. If it's a skincare routine, because you need to take care of how you present yourself, your hygiene, that's self-care. And
Hmm.
we're around a lot of studs that feel that natural is their way of life. And I'm like, no, you can fix that, right? And it's okay to get a little extra wash if you have to help you, because you're
Yeah.
carrying a little extra, and I've seen and smelled some skinny people, and I'm like, you just flying by. Like, we need to help you with that. And just in our culture, our community,
Hmm.
and just saying, hey, like you said, it was a little girly. I get that, because I don't do fingernail polish. It was because of the way I was raised. I was raised Holy Bible Church of God, and fingernail polish just wasn't a thing. So I don't even do it. But I still try to make sure that I step outside of my boundary to a
Hmm.
point. Now, I don't knock nobody, but my wife would love to see me in a bra and panty set. That's just not going to happen. You're going to get the sports bra and these shorts. That's what you're getting. And so, again, boundaries.
Yeah. Okay.
It doesn't mean I don't love her and won't do anything for her. I won't do that.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you got to respect that.
Yeah. I get that. And I think that's beautiful. I think sometimes we, as masculine presenting women, take a little heat
Mm-hmm.
behind how we choose to love on ourselves, right?
Right.
In some aspects, to some of the elder masculine presenting women, uh, getting our nails, our feet done may be too
Wearing a
feminine.
bra.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Or a
Wearing a
bra,
bra.
right? It's you're moving into a more feminine era. And then on the younger side, whereas they are very different, right? They have their own lane,
Mm-hmm.
right? And they're entitled to that. But I think it's just odd, and I want to say unfair, because it doesn't allow people to kind of be comfortable with who they are,
Right. Right.
especially with external judgment, if that makes sense.
No, I think that's a very fair statement.
Hmm.
A very fair statement. Because when we look how things have progressed over the lesbian timeline, especially for those of masculine ascendant, getting your hair done was an issue back then.
Yeah.
You wearing no, this is a man top, but if I was wearing a feminine top, the necklace, that was probably too much for him back then, because it was that presentation.
Yeah.
But then being able to advocate for yourself and saying, I'm a full lesbian, but it's okay that I dress this manner. I'm androgynous in my attire. That
Yeah.
it doesn't take away. And again, that's self love, because I've learned to be so loved and comfortable in how I show up. That's all that matters.
Yeah.
Put it on, wear it, long as it makes you feel good.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think, and again, that's self love, being able to be strong in your decision, putting yourself at a high regard. And that doesn't necessarily mean tearing down another person or saying, or being mean or anything like that, but making sure that your needs are not
Yeah.
being sacrificed. And again, and if you realize that part of saying, I'm just not sacrificing my needs for this decision,
Yeah. Be
and
comfortable
make
in your skin.
be comfortable in your skin, and that
Yeah.
goes a long way. If getting a little fingernail polish on your nails is comfortability, I support you.
Absolutely.
I just have not grew out of that religious mindset. That's my only reason.
Okay.
I've never wore fingernail polish
Yeah. Yeah.
except when Abby did it. That was the only
Okay.
time when the baby did it. But
Right.
outside of that, that's me. It doesn't mean I'm against it. It just means in here I haven't I haven't moved,
In
and
that
that's something
direction
I
yet.
need to work out.
Yeah.
That's me.
Yeah.
You know.
Well, I think each of us have our own journey, and we
Yeah.
arrive there when we're comfortable to be able to live in that space, right? You can
Hmm.
tell an authentic person, or a person who's not comfortable within their own skin, the moment they walk in, or the moment you encounter with or
Hmm.
interact with them, right?
Right.
So at the very basic level, and I do want to say to Jules, thank you so much for tuning in. We appreciate your support. Um, we have to get to a place where we're okay with not being everybody's cup of tea. I'm not
Exactly.
for everybody, and I'm okay
Right.
with that. I
I'm
am
extremely okay because you're not my cup of tea.
okay, and I'm cool on that too. But
Yeah.
that doesn't mean we can't exist in the same
Exactly.
environments, in the same circles, right? No, no, no. I wish you nothing but the best. You are who you are. I am who I am, and we have our own lanes, and we can operate and flourish in our own lanes,
Hmm.
right? So, um, the other thing that I wanted to ask you about, you said when I typed it, I think it was a response on your page,
Yeah, you did
it kind of
pound self
triggered you.
love. Yeah.
Yeah, what was that about? Because in my mind, I'm thinking like this young girl is smart. She's saying what it is, she's vocalizing what it is that she needs. And as
Yeah.
young Black women or young women of color, we have to be able to do that. And she's doing that
Exactly.
at a very young age.
Very young age. Now I'm
Yeah,
gonna put a note on that. She's a little cunning, little something, because she had homework. You got to learn that letter, and she was trying to get out the house, so she's
yeah,
asking me about my schedule. When I'm like, you know what? I get it. You need some fresh air. Go stand to that door because I
yeah,
need this work done. I need you to get past Y. Well, apparently she's on Z, but it
yeah,
doesn't matter. So no, but she's that example. To be honest with you, she knows. It's like she'll say something, you be like, I didn't even think about that. Or
Yeah.
like even when it comes down to, I did your baby like that. Oh, and just FYI, we're not in competition, but there's a couple other podcasts that was scheduled at the same time, hours that was normally scheduled afterwards.
Okay, I did
So
see that,
yeah, yeah,
but I thought it was at a different time. But
me
if it is
too.
at the same time, that is okay. We have
Yeah,
nothing but love for them and wish them well. Go ahead.
yeah. So is and but taking that, but she said she needed some fresh air. That's we can take that as an adult. Sometimes we need to go take a nap.
Yeah.
Sometimes you need to just go stand outside and take in some sun because you're if you work from home, you need to take a break and care for yourself in that moment. Because if not, you'll get overwhelmed, you'll get frustrated, and it's a lot. And you have to manage your mental health, and it's not all about being crazy. It's
Mhm.
simply of saying, right now I feel myself getting irritated. So then let me go get some fresh air real quick. Let me go take a walk around the block
Mhm.
because it could have been an email. It could have been anything at work. So,
Yeah.
you want to incorporate self care in every aspect of your life. And I would say this, and I'm glad my LS is on, especially with your doctors. You have to advocate for yourself, and that's a form of self love because it's
Mhm.
like, I'm just not going to let you put me on anything. I'm not just going to let you give me any diagnosis that you want because we know black diagnosis is not the same as white diagnosis. And we want to make sure that we're being heard, but nobody can hear you if you don't open your mouth. And I'm not saying she's doing that. I just know when she goes to the VA, and stuff like that. And it's like, no, say something,
Mhm.
and we have to do that. I had to say that to my doctor. I'm like, no, that's not what I want though. Well, this is my recommendation. That's not what I want. You, I don't care about your recommendation.
Yeah.
No, I don't. No, and I ain't been back.
Yeah.
Absolutely not. That's not what I want.
Yeah. Well, so I'm glad that you brought that up because again, I think it was an important recognition to be able to kind of celebrate in that way,
Hmm.
and that's initially or immediately what I thought of when she said what she said. Now,
Hmm.
now that you're explaining more of the backstory, I also understand
She tried to be
that form
slick.
of manipulation as well.
Exactly.
We got little people about that size too, so
Right.
absolutely.
No, it's I just think that, and then also I would love for people to understand, develop your own self-love, which means you have to sit with yourself, whether it's in prayer, meditation, however you take it, to get in tune with what your body needs from you, what your mind needs from you, what your heart needs from you.
Hmm.
And a part of self-care that is often overlooked is healing. And it could be shadow work healing
Hmm.
or current work healing, because a lot of our reality is based off of experiences that we've had in the past,
Yep.
and we don't deal with that. We don't deal with the little girl, because we had the episode about dealing with the little girl and me,
Yeah.
but not going back and saying how out, not necessarily defense, but you know how black people is, oh, it'll be okay. No, it's not going to be okay. It's not. And it's wrong. And you
Hmm.
need to be able to handle that. And sometimes you have to go back and sit with yourself and say, why am I feeling, or why am I triggered by this particular situation?
Hmm.
And if you sit quietly enough, your body will tell you why you're triggered.
Hmm.
It could be something as it brought up what happened in the fourth grade when somebody teased you because you had on ugly shoes. And you would have never put those two things together, but that was an unhealed part of you that's triggered all the way in 2025.
Yeah.
So a part of the self-care is for you to sit and say, you know what, Joy, you've grown. You don't have that situation no more.
Hmm.
Nobody else sees you like that. You're the only one that continue to see yourself in that hurt. You're the only one that continue to see yourself in that pain. Nobody
Yeah.
else sees it. I don't see your pain unless you open your mouth. But you can look inward and say, that was a hurt for me.
Yeah.
'Cause I think we had another episode about triggers. You don't nobody know your triggers, and it's not their responsibility not to trigger you. You need to deal with it. And that's self love. When you're willing to do the work and making sure that every part of you, as much as to you, can be healed.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes you have to do that healing. You're not going to be in a place where everybody's going to tell you, I'm sorry. You're not going to be in a place where somebody's going to own what they did. Move on.
Yeah.
And it could be hurtful. You could have been sexually assaulted. Eventually, you're going to have to move from that place. If not, you would die in that place.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. Another thing that I feel like is not often talked about in terms of how that can also be a form of self love is
Mhm.
words of affirmation, right? We
Oh,
have
period.
to be stewards of talking positive words on our life, right? We
Hmm.
can't rely on external sources or other people, social media. We can't rely on text messages or emails that we might get to offer us positive affirmations and positive words over ourselves. We
Right,
can do that. We have the equipment, the tools to be able to say that and do that for ourselves. And then
right.
while we're doing it for ourselves, we can also impart those same positive words and energy onto other people that we love, right? We never
Hmm.
know, like you said, we've talked about this many times on this platform. We never know what other people are going through,
Right.
right? And so if one word, one sentence, one paragraph, one text message that I send to you, or that I may say in passing to you, right? Offer some words of whatever, um, helps you, then
Hmm. You've
all
done
the
your
better
job.
for it. Yeah,
Right.
all the better.
But and let's look at words of affirmation because we have to make sure we're not trying to convince ourselves. We have
Yeah,
to be able to speak truth. And it's okay if you're not there yet, but you can still say an affirmation in a way that confirms where you are, but puts you in a position where you want to be. And when you're speaking affirmations, you have to speak from a place of confidence,
yep.
right? And
Mm-hmm.
there's different types of affirmations. I'm a chakra person, right? And
Mm-hmm.
I do believe in those energies because they do exist. But you have a affirmation from your heart, and it's I feel. You got an affirmation from your sacral and from your solar plexus and all of that, and from your mind, I know.
Mm-hmm.
From your throat, I speak. So those are affirmations too.
Mm-hmm.
And it helped guide you because a lot of people don't believe that when they say I am, they don't believe that they are.
Right.
So you need to find, you can say, I feel abundant because you're not connecting with I am abundant
Mm-hmm.
because it
Not
could
yet.
just, exactly. So you have to progress to that point to where you can speak in such a way that it actually resonates with your truth. And the scripture says, out of the abundance of the heart, the mouth speaks. So the biggest part you have to do is what is in your heart, because that is what comes out your mouth.
Mm-hmm.
How you approach other people comes out your mouth.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're speaking negatively, if you're speaking, and you may not even think you're speaking negative. Let me like when people say, "Oh, that's my," they talk about their kids. Oh, that's my broke best friend. Look at what the negative context you
Yeah.
just put on that.
Yep.
And you can say, well, I'm just joking, but that's not how the universe, how spirit, how anything works. They don't know you're joking.
Right.
So
Words
you
have
literally,
power.
exactly. So you literally just said, my broke best friend. I wish you would call my daughter broke. And you have to be that serious about your words, just as you are about your pedicures.
Mm-hmm.
You need to be just as serious how you speak to yourself because it's our internal conversations that matter. It's not the external. Because
Mm-hmm.
again, you show up how you want me to see you. So how are you showing up? So when
Absolutely.
you
I would say even that's the difference in my opinion. This is my opinion. Again,
mm,
this is my opinion. That's the difference. And sometimes people will look at you or they'll
mm,
look at your life and say, well, how is she has all of these things and how is she able to go to these places and how is she able
mm-hmm,
to afford this and how is she able to get that promotion
none of your
versus
business.
looking at themselves. But the difference in those two people is that the person who's asking, why this person, what are you saying about yourself? What are
Right.
you not saying about yourself?
But
Right?
what you're saying is that you're not looking at yourself.
Right. Exactly. And they've got to figure out that part is not is that part is never going to help you get those things that other person is doing. They don't have any more hours in the day than you do.
Right. But why are you trying to find your reflection in somebody else's mirror?
Listen, I
Because,
don't know where that stems from, but it's a lot of people who have that same complex.
yeah, it's like we have to be so in tune with ourselves that I have is nothing you have that makes me desire it. You know why? Because I stand on my own
Yep.
and you stand on your own. That's why we can exist together in each one of our greatness because your success is your success. My success is mine. So I'm not looking at him like, oh, why she got that? No, that because that ain't what I want. You may want, you have a beautiful BMW truck. You wanted a BMW. You may not want it, a Mercedes. So why am I bothered? Because you don't, because I don't have a BMW. I don't want a BMW.
Right.
I want something else. Honestly, I want a Lincoln Continental. That's what I
Yeah.
want.
Yeah.
And so you have to get to the place where there's not an envious bone in your body, not a jealous bone in your body, because you will never be happy for somebody else's happiness.
Exactly.
And I'm gonna hit some of my church folks with this. In the book of Job, it says, and the Lord turned the captivity of Job when he prayed for his friends. It ain't have nothing to do with him focusing on his own situation and saying, I'm in the worst situation than y'all. My children died. Everything I had got taken away.
Mm-hmm.
But then I have to pray for y'all. And then that's when my captivity was turned.
Yeah.
That's how unselfish we supposed to be in humanity because that's the way we were designed.
Mm-hmm.
And so if you can literally be so happy for the other person, sincerely happy, then your situation will turn.
Yeah. I believe
But
that too.
you'll start seeing differently about yourself.
Mm-hmm.
But if it bothers you because somebody else is moving in a certain way, you need to check yourself.
I wish that was on a t-shirt, man. Because
Put
listen,
it
you
on
don't know.
one.
Right. Listen, I'm gonna have to go back and jot down, some of these nuggets. But listen, the my point in saying or echoing that is because there's so many people. Oh, well, I was going to start a podcast, so I was going to do that. Well, you have the same amount of hours in the day that I do, right?
And you have
You
different
have
topics.
right. People don't understand. God gave us all gifts and all talents, gave us all gifts, talents of various kinds. My gifts and talents are not going to look like yours, like you pointed out. It
Mm-mm.
doesn't mean that you're any more or any less than myself. Go
Right.
and do the thing that He imparted into you. He only gave you that thing. He didn't give it to me. So whatever
Exactly.
conversation or content you want to create, whatever platforms you want to go on to create, whatever, however you want to do it, go and do that.
It's like going to the grocery store, walk down the bread aisle. All of it's bread,
Right.
but you may want Sara Lee.
Yeah.
I may go for the cheap one, which I won't, but I will go for the cheap one, the Food Line brand.
Yeah.
Bread is bread,
Yeah.
but they got so many different options because everybody likes something different.
Yeah.
You go down the toilet paper aisle, it's still toilet paper, but you got Charmin, Angel, whatever that one, and then you got Scott. You got pick one.
Yeah. Yeah.
You
And
go
one
down the
didn't
water
stop.
aisle. Go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say one didn't stop because the other one was still in business.
No, then we gonna get into this toilet paper roll business too
Okay.
because you need toilet paper. You want water? Go down the water aisle. How many brands of water is there? You even got the store brand,
Okay.
or you got the one you can turn your faucet on with. Why? So there's no way when people realize that the way abundance work, abundance means that there is more than enough.
Okay.
But what we get stuck at is we try to look for the abundance in the past and the abundance in the future, and we forget to focus on the abundance that we have right now. That's the only thing we need to be focused on. Tomorrow will worry about itself. I
Hmm.
can't do nothing what happened yesterday. I don't even remember what happened yesterday.
Yeah.
But if
Yeah.
you're so focused in your present, in your moment, you will realize how abundant you are. And that's what we're supposed to give out of.
Hmm.
I remember telling somebody, I was like, when you're somebody has, hey, grandpa, how are you? When somebody have $5, to you, it may not be enough money because you're thinking about tomorrow.
Hmm.
It ain't enough money. I need to hold this because I may need it later. You thinking about, but that is abundant to somebody. So how can you give out of your abundance? I take that $5, break it down to five ones, and go pass it out. I gave out of my abundance. It may be little, but it's still a level of abundance.
Hmm.
Scarcity says, no, I'm gonna hold this because I'm gonna need it later.
Hmm.
You're too afraid to exist in the moment and be okay with what you have.
Hmm. That's a shift in your mindset also.
Right, right.
That's the shift in your mindset. You have to realize at some big age in life, right?
Hmm.
That, okay, if I had been doing this for the last 15, 20 years and it didn't really work, let me try something different.
That's insanity. And that's the definition of insanity.
Okay. But it's some people that still stuck in the old ways. Like
Hmm.
they refuse. It's gonna get better. It's gonna do something.
No,
Like,
it ain't gonna change. It ain't gonna change. Just like some people ain't gonna change. Let them be.
yeah, yeah,
When somebody
absolutely.
show you who they are, let them be.
Listen, don't try to convince them or change them to be
Mm-mm.
anything other than, because they're gonna do that anyway.
Right. But
Because
I
that's
just
who they are.
that's who they are. Nobody, okay. Judas was created to be Judas. So it's like Bartholomew couldn't been Judas because Bartholomew needed to be Bartholomew.
Okay.
Peter could not be Judas because Peter needed to be Peter. Everybody has a position to play. Lay in your position, earn your own position. Whether it's good or bad, whether you was brought here to be a Ted Bundy, whether you was brought here to be a Marilyn Manson, play your lane because that's what you was here for, or you
Yeah.
decided to do.
Yeah.
So when you realize that I cannot be Joy playing Keisha because Keisha needs to be Keisha,
Yeah.
stop worrying about it.
Yeah.
Match her fly. Don't try to copy it because you're not going to look good in it.
Right.
I praise you for everything you put on because you be wearing the hell out of that stuff. But you come in
Thank
with
you.
patterns and stuff that nobody would have thought to put together. And I be sitting there looking like, I would have never thought about that. Never in a million years would I would put on yellow and red and made it look that good with a waistcoat. I wouldn't have never thought about that. I don't even like red.
Yeah.
But what is it gonna benefit me to take that shine from you? You
Yeah.
own that, and you look amazing in it. So it's like,
Thank you.
what's so wrong with saying you own that, and then let me own mine?
Right. There's
That's what's
enough.
wrong with people. That's what's
Yeah.
wrong with people.
Yeah.
And you don't have any self care. You
Right.
don't have any
Or
self
self love.
love. You don't
Yeah.
have no self esteem. You don't have any of it.
I would say they lack a little in self love, right? They may love
Mhm.
themselves, but for me, clearly, like, I'm happy when other people are winning, right? Just like exactly how you said.
Mhm.
I know if they winning, then I ain't far behind. Like, man, and I
But
need somebody to cheer for me, but I'm looking to see who it is. You know what I'm saying?
exactly right. But let me
If
ask you
she
this:
wasn't,
how can we really qualify them for having self love when they're not loving anything about themselves because they're so busy trying to copy what they see as higher regard than what they have?
gotcha. I would answer that in that I don't know that anyone is purposeful in terms of not loving self.
Hmm.
I think they lack the ability or the capacity to understand what loving someone else, how to love someone else, how to love
Right.
yourself in a place to where you can also love someone else, even if you desire to look like them, be like them, or aspire to go down their path or whatever. That you both can exist and both be successful
Hmm.
in those regards.
Because
That's what I
everybody's
think it
success
is.
is differently.
Yes, absolutely. And at different times. I was
Right.
listening to a social media post the other day, and one of the guys said he noticed that the richer or the more wealthy Jay-Z gets, that he's into different rooms. He's allowed into different spaces now.
Hmm.
And one thing he also notices that now that he's in these various spaces with these other millionaires, billionaires, they're not talking about money. They're strategizing and talking about business.
I'm so glad you
They're not
brought that
talking
up.
about how much money you have, how much. That's not the conversations they having. But the dude that's at the corner store at that just got off of work at
Mhm.
Wendy's is fussing about somebody else making $30,000 and he's still maybe making at 19.
I'm so glad you brought that up because let's take a look at Jay Z for just a quick second.
Sure.
He started out rocking the Rockefeller chain.
Yeah.
He was deep into his jewelry and that beat, that street look. But you can start telling how his money changed when his conversation started changing and his appearance started changing.
Yeah.
Now, granted, he's rocking his wicks and everything now, but I bet you he has on a $5,000, $10,000 suit
Yeah.
because of the material, the fabric. He didn't go to Men's Warehouse to get that. No, somebody custom that for him. So you will notice a person's stature and how they feel about themselves and where they stand, whether it's manifested or not, by the way their conversation is
Hmm.
and the way that they show up. If you can't not tell me you want to be a millionaire, but you can't even get up and do your hair, brush your teeth in the morning, and prepare for the day, that's because that's not what millionaires do. They prepare for the day. They're not talking about money. Like you said, they're talking about strategies
Hmm.
because the money is already in place. So changing your conversation, changing how you show up, all of that is how you should exist.
Hmm.
Listen, who else is it? It's when they say old money versus new money. When Damon, I think it was a Damon Dash, his other partner in Rockefeller,
Yeah.
sold his shares and his chain. That lets you know where your mind at because you still holding on to the value of that chain and what it
Hmm.
says. When Jay Z's is put up in the closet, he was just waiting for you to sell your shares, and he's sitting back there at the auction waiting too. He been moved from that,
Yeah.
so it's like when especially our black sisters and brothers, I don't care if that Hermes bag came from TikTok or the Hermes store. If you're buying that bag to prove your value to me, you just wasted money.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's
A lot
the
of people do that for people who don't even like them.
I'm sitting there like, no, I don't. It doesn't matter. You don't know how much money a person has just because they wear it, and that doesn't make you any more valuable. You're trying to prove something. You have not fell in love with yourself to say I can wear my Shein because I got this from Shein, got this from Shein. You, I'm Shein down. I even got on Shein pants. Did I get these shoes from Shein? I probably did too. But that doesn't matter how much money I earn. I like the outfit and I'm
Hmm.
wearing it.
Hmm.
That's the place where you need to get to where your outside, your external should not be used to validate your internal.
Yeah, I would agree. And for me, another person who echoes that very loudly and very respectfully, I would say is Deion Sanders. He
Mhm.
absolutely has an abundant amount of self-love in the
Oh
manner
man,
in which
don't he?
he disciplined himself
Hmm.
in the way he coached in terms of his professional career, right? And now even past that, he didn't have to go back and coach football, right? At
Mm-mm.
any college, he didn't have to do that. He saw where there was a need. He
Right,
went and filled that need based on
right,
his skills and his talent, right?
exactly.
And then he was able to father and coach and mentor all of these other people who were coming behind him
Hmm.
because he understands the importance and how he imparts, I'm sure, into their life self love. in terms
Exactly.
of how he again is disciplined enough to show up the way he looks, how his stature, how he carried himself, the type of clothes he looked, how he presented himself to the world, how he presented himself to the NFL, and also into the baseball league, right?
Hmm.
He's also a baseball player. He's another person who exemplifies self-love on a
Self
different
love.
level.
Exactly.
Yeah.
He's a great example because
Hmm.
you can't tell him. He was like, what I look like,
Okay. And the
caring that you
confidence.
jealous of me. I mean, he don't care. He
Okay.
didn't care, and let's be honest, he didn't care how those white people saw him.
At all.
He didn't care at all. And that's self-love within itself. You should not care how somebody see you. Stand in what you can do. Stand in your gift, in your talent.
Hmm.
Because when you hide it, that's when your talent and your gift will leave you. And if you think
Hmm.
I'm kidding, you know I got a scripture and everything. He
Yeah.
said he gave one 5 talents. He gave the other 2 talents. He gave one talent. When he left and came back, he said, "What did you do with yours?" The one that had 5 said, "I went and doubled it. Good job." The other one with 2, I went and doubled mine. Good job. The one with 1, he said, "What did you do with yours?" "Oh, I buried it because I didn't think, I was going to do anything about it." So he took his talent and gave it to the others who could do something with it. But
Yeah.
then the part that we keep missing is that scripture says, according, because people say, why did one get 5? Why he didn't get 5 to all of them? He said it was according to their ability. Some people can only do one thing, and that one thing is great.
Okay.
Some people can do 15 and it is great. So you can't come and tell a person, "Oh, you the jack of all trades, but the master of none." You can't say that to a person because you don't know what they mastered.
True.
So don't get mad because you got 1 to somebody's 5. That 1 can outweigh their 5. It's all about how you see yourself and how you love what you can produce in this life that you have.
Hmm. I'm going to interject and say one of the key words you say, how you see yourself, right? Because
Mm,
some people don't even see themselves.
they don't.
Okay. I know here where I live out, there is a tremendous amount of youth that
Mhm.
are lost and they're committing crimes and just wilding out in the streets with no care or thought about themselves and or anyone else.
Right.
And I often wonder where does that come from? At what point in life do you just have to look at yourself and be like, I don't care anymore? Like that just never crossed my mind. And I don't relate.
Mhm.
I don't have any reference. I don't, I just, I do not understand that. I do not understand that.
I can speak for a lot of, now I can't speak. I can speak on situations that's here in Baltimore. We got a really big thing. They got them boys that the windshield, they
The
come out
squeegee or
squeegee board,
yeah.
which they honestly they need to stop. Because when you really think about it, you're out there in the sun all day chasing people with water bottles who can get nervous and shoot you, who can do anything to you, run you over. You're in the middle of the road. They don't even think about the safety part. But half of the time, they ain't even got real Windex or anything, and it just be
Right.
water. But you're literally hustling 12, 10, 12 hours to maybe come out with $50 in ones. If I could help you see a different perspective on earning that, and it's not always at McDonald's. However, if you would have gave McDonald's 8 hours of your time at $17 an hour, then you would have more than you being out there. Same thing with my cousins when they were selling drugs. There's no way you've been out here selling crack all day and you only got a couple of hundred. You could you could have worked on somebody at a construction site and came back with $1,000
Yeah.
in 2 days. Like
Yeah.
you're seeing the freedom of you being able to do what you want and not constrained to a boss and all of that. I get that, but you're still coming up short. And it, like you said, it's a mindset, and it's what they saw. It's like, who showed you this life, and then showed you that it's okay. Because if you don't have any, I can't go out there and tell somebody, when you get your income tax, go put it in a CD and let it mature in 10 years, you'll have this. When they're thinking, I need this income tax money now.
Okay.
And how does it make sense for me to give you money that I've been waiting on all year to hold for 5 to 10 years only to get $200-300 on it. Make that make sense. So when people are telling people to go out here and invest and do this, make it make sense. So if you're going to bring a solution, make it make sense. So like you were talking about the young individuals that's out there and they're not seeing an example of where it makes sense to do right.
Mm-hmm.
Same thing if you get an individual out of prison that was or jail that was selling drugs. How can you show them another way of making the same type of money they were making that got them in there to keep them out of there?
Mm-hmm.
I can't tell you that you went from 2 or 3 thousand. I'm talking about you selling big drugs, $2 or 3 thousand a day to soon as you get out of jail, I give you $100, tell you to go find you somewhere to live and to go find you a job because nobody's gonna hire you with a background.
Mm-hmm.
And then you're making $10 an hour, but I don't want you to go back and do what you did before because jail should be a fear. No, it's worth the risk
Mm-hmm.
because if I'm used to $1,000, $2,000 a day, there's no way that McDonald's or Wendy's is going to suffice that, and I'm going to go back. So if we don't show a person a different way, they don't know anything different because they're going off what they see. They
Mm-hmm.
can't see internally because they haven't fixed what they see externally.
Gotcha. I gotcha. Well, here's another another perspective, right? Let's say, for example, we're in a household, or let's just use myself, right?
Mhm,
I have one side, on my father's side, there's six of us. Let's
mhm,
say we all grew up in the same household, right? I have a healthy level of self love, right?
mhm,
The siblings just below me have a decent amount, and then the ones that are at the end, let's say they have zero, right?
mhm,
How does that happen when we're all under the same roof, right? If we're all on the same roof, we all have the same parents, we're all to some degree parented in the same loving way and poured into in terms of having a self-love. And I wouldn't say, again, I don't think people choose to not love themselves. I just think that they don't understand the value of themselves in order to love on self. Does that make sense?
it makes sense, but we talked about this before, and I'm trying to remember. So, and this is again just my opinion.
Right.
Everybody experience parents differently.
Mhm.
We was raised in, we was around our mama. My mama dealt with me different. Then she dealt with Angie. Then she dealt with Jen, and we was all in the same house. Sometimes there's certain situations that calls for that parent to do you different. Like for example, I'm the oldest, so we got everything. I'm talking about every beat down, every yell, every scream, every kick in the chest. We got all of that. But then they learn and say, okay, I can't do that to the second one.
Yeah.
Or they project so many of their fears on the first one till they don't have no more fears with the second one. They don't even care what they do.
Yeah.
And then the last one, they just let them get away with anything. Because if I keep giving you something, you'll never find value in it. Therefore, you don't have self love. You just expect to be entitled and taken care of. And
Mm.
that's typically what happens with them last ones. Because the
Okay.
middle one is still trying to fight for attention. And then it also depends on where your parent is at that moment. Because in all truthfulness, a father gives their daughter their worth and they show their sons their worth. So if he's not worthy, how can he show his son to be worthy?
Mhm.
He didn't give him an example of worth, not how to be a man, but worth. Because you're going to show up as a man different. You're going to show up as a woman different. You're going to establish that throughout your life. All I can do is show you your worth, no matter how that is.
Yeah.
And then too, again, setting examples. Um, let's say education. I'm big on that. I have all of my degrees on the wall because I want my daughter to come in and say, I don't need you to reach that height. I just want you to know what the expectation is. That you make sure that you're learned. I don't care how you do it. Whether you go get a vocational, whether you go get a certificate, I don't care. You need to pick something that you want to learn in order to use it. You may not need it in the industry you choose, but you still need to exercise a knowledge muscle in some way.
Yeah.
So I gave you that example. Now, how would that look for Abigail versus how it looked for one of our oldest ones that actually was raised in the same household?
Mm-hmm.
They didn't take it. They didn't see the value in it, even though they both seen it the same way. So then when it was time for them to get out and all of that, then it was, you didn't show me this. Yes, I did. I showed you this. This is how I showed you.
Mm-hmm.
Just because you didn't decide to pick it up is not my fault. So to me, to sum it up, I think it's two ways. I think it's also how we perceive the experience and also what we're getting out the experience. Because some parents will be honest with you and say, I didn't love you this manner because I didn't think you needed all that love. I thought your sister or your brother needed it.
Okay.
My daddy told me that.
Mm-hmm.
He said, you always had everything together. I didn't think you needed. Well, I'm sorry that you thought that way.
Mm-hmm.
I still wanted to know that you cared just because I could provide for myself.
Right.
And then we had that conversation of saying, the reason why I had to provide for myself is because you said this, because you did this, you know. And my dad is so wonderful. Let me put that out there. But one of the most hurtful things he said to me, I was 10 years old. He said, if you ever need anything, make me your last choice. And I took that. And
Mm-hmm.
that has always been my mantra in my mind. It came from a negative situation, but I feel it helped me to become the person I am, but it also damaged me
Mm-hmm.
because now it's hard. I'm learning how to give somebody else that space because I'm so used to depending on me.
Right.
So I don't trust nobody to do anything for me without my oversight because I don't think it's going to be good enough.
Right. I can see that too. And I think a lot of people fall in that same category.
Mhm.
Two things can be true. Those two things can be true.
Right.
I've got another question for you that I want us to talk about. I know we're close to wrapping up, but what is the danger in confusing self-love with self-sabotage and where that kind of lies,
Hmm.
or your opinion rather?
Okay. So you want me to go first?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. So in my opinion, self-love and self-sabotage, the danger would be from you doing a false sense of self-love and it becomes a self-sabotage. For
Okay.
example, you can say, "Oh, I'm self-loving because let's go back to the triggers. I ain't gonna never let nobody do this, and I ain't gonna never do this." And you're positioning it as I'm loving myself to put up this boundary or this barrier, because it ain't even a boundary. It's a barrier that I'm not gonna let you hear. I never let anybody in this space because of what I heard. So now I verbally reject you. Nobody want to date you because you're mean. You are insecure. You think people are, but to you it's self-love because you're not allowing nobody to get here. You're protecting yourself. But then it becomes self-sabotage because you didn't let nobody get there.
Right.
So you don't even know who could love you
Mm-hmm.
because you wouldn't let them pass that barrier. So to you, it's a wall, my hedge of protection. But then you just protected yourself out of somebody who could love the hell out of you. So maybe that's the way I see it,
Yeah.
where the danger of self love, you can overdo it till it becomes a self sabotage. What about
Right.
you?
I would agree with that. The only thing that I would add is just a slight caveat is when we put sometimes those boundaries in place, right? So we're saying that we want, you to love me in this way and care for me the same way I do for myself. But when that person attempts to care for you or love on you, it doesn't look like what you think it should look like. So like
Hmm.
you said, you reject them.
Right.
Right. When in all along, that very well is the manner in which they understand on how to love you, because it didn't look like the picture that you painted for yourself in your head. That's a self-sabotage. You're rejecting that because it doesn't look like what you want it
I
to
get
look
that.
like it.
Right. It's like you see it one way,
Yeah.
but how you're projecting it, they're seeing it the way you projecting it, and it ain't matching. So something ain't right. It
Yeah.
ain't how they see it, it's how you see it.
Yeah.
Because it's like that ain't what it's giving off.
Right.
You playing with
Absolutely.
me. That was
Yep.
like you playing games with me. That ain't
Yeah.
how you. I get that,
Yeah.
and that makes plenty of sense.
And I think that happens to a lot of people. I think I don't know that it's a wrong or a right way, I should say. I will say, if you can find it in your heart to be open to uh receiving it in ways in which you may not expect it, right? So
Mm-hmm.
even if I say, God, okay, if you don't love me because you took my mother away, you don't love me because you took my grandmother away, he does love you, right?
Mm-hmm.
I can't measure the fact that God loves me any less because he took those people away.
Right.
They had their own journey, their task was done, it was time for them to go home.
Exactly.
Who am
Exactly.
I to say, well, okay, you don't love me because you didn't give me these people who loved on me here.
Right.
That
And
would
it's like, no, they gave you all the love they could while
exactly
they
for
was
the
here.
time that you needed it. Now
Mm-hmm.
they have a different mission. It's
Exactly.
time for and you only have this much time, this little section between the dash when you were born and when you exit. There's a dash.
Right.
You have this much time to impart self-love for yourself and to love on other people. How you all choose to do that
That is
and
so good.
commune in that
Hmm.
is between you all.
That is so delicious. It's ridiculous. That is so good.
It happens all the time. I
But
see it
it
plain as
makes you
day.
think,
Yeah.
like, because and I'm gonna say this in a very joking way, but a lot of people blame God before they'll blame Buddha. God, you got me sick, and if there's a God, but you didn't get mad at Buddha, you did not get mad at Confucius, you didn't get mad at Mary the Great or whatever them Catholics be, you didn't get mad at Saint Michael. So
Yeah.
why is Jesus a problem?
Or the Pope.
Or the Pope? You ain't get mad at him because you didn't get healed.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But we have to have somewhere to blame.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
in that moment, like you said, we are saying, okay, you love me because you will appease everything about me by keeping them here.
Mm-hmm.
And I
Mm-hmm.
went through that, and I'm pretty sure a lot of people who lost a parent or someone that was so significant in their life felt that way.
Mm-hmm.
You
At
know,
one
for when
point in
my
time.
mom passed, yeah, I you couldn't tell me I was mad at God
Yeah.
for a long time
Yeah. I think
because
that's
I'm
a
like,
natural
right, and you have to be
feeling.
okay with that, and being able to admit it and saying, you know what, I was mad because I felt that you could have done something different,
Yeah.
versus accepting what the truth of the matter is. And in my case, that my mom, it would have hurt her to continue to live than it was for her to rest.
Yeah.
And it took me a while to accept that because I'm like, no, because I'm selfish. I
Yeah.
wanted you here with me. I want to be able to ignore your calls. I want to get your voicemails. I
Yeah.
want to be able to call you at 3 o'clock in the morning because I know you're going to answer because my
Yeah.
wife is not going to answer. See, she
Yeah.
popped dead,
Yeah.
but
I
yeah,
see it. Thank you,
yeah.
Shay. Well, and I 100% agree. Let me just add this. I know if you got to go, then let me know.
No, 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 no.
But I
We
think
good.
that is a very good point in that
Hmm.
sometimes when we're in that grieving process, it didn't necessarily take me that long because in my mind, each one of them, when my grandmother passed away, my mother passed away, each time it was an initial anger, right? And then it,
Hmm.
it, it, it moved right into, oh, you know what? They taught me this. They taught me at some point I'm going to leave. I'm not going to be
Hmm.
here,
Right.
right?
They had to bring it back to your remembrance.
Right. And the fact that for me, what gave me comfort immediately, angry for a hot second, okay, they're far better off. They're in a better place than we
Hmm.
are because they're in no more pain. They're not suffering. They're not, tied to a hospital bed. They're not on these medications. They are free.
Unhappy, sad.
Yes.
Those are real
Their
emotions.
spirits are free.
Right.
And from that place is where we can start celebrate. For me, I'll say, not me, we can celebrate the life that they had while they were here between those two dashes.
Hmm.
That's the time frame that
And
we have to make an impression.
and truly let them rest in peace.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because if you don't, energetically and spiritually, when you're grieving a person that hard, you're not allowing them to rest because it's almost like a hostage thing. It's like I'm
Hmm.
holding you here so much to I have not let go, and I had to deal with that years. Like I didn't let her go,
Yeah.
and somebody who was praying for me told me, they was like, you have to let her go.
Yeah.
I mean, no, she wasn't walking around the house and nothing like that,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
I didn't allow her because I was mad at her too.
Ooh. Okay.
Because I'm like,
Ooh.
you could have did better by yourself. But
Yeah.
then why I didn't help you? Then I felt guilty.
Yeah.
Well, why I didn't do better?
Yeah.
It was going back and forth. But again, going to the self-love. After her passing, after anybody's passing, that's the moments where situations allow you to recall where that person did show up for you. You
Mm-hmm.
maybe misinterpreted how they
Mm-hmm.
showed up for you. And in turn, you appreciate, because a lot of times, especially children that was raised by their mother, their father wasn't there, they have more problem with their mother. Like, she always did this, and she was this, and she was that. But you ain't never said nothing about that bastard daddy who never showed up.
Mm-hmm.
You're mad at the mama who was there, even though she couldn't do but so much.
Yeah.
And we do, but when they're gone, that's when it gives us a time to say, you know what? I was unfair
Yeah.
because I thought that I had the perfect solution on how I should have been treated.
Yeah.
As an adult, trying to tell your parent how they should have taught you as a child is diabolical.
Yeah. Some of them
There's no
try it
way.
though.
Yeah, they tried because I tried it. Everybody tried it. You should have did this. No, I shouldn't have.
Yeah.
No, I should not have. And you're not going to tell me otherwise. But
Right.
that's it. But I think self love, everybody needs to really define self love
Yeah.
because it's about self. What is it about you that you need to make sure you advocate for? Thank you so much. Thank you so much for being a part of our show.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah, and that's it.
Yeah.
Sit with yourself and say, how do I need to show up for myself?
Absolutely. And I would say that that's a ongoing conversation, right?
Mhm.
Because how you love on yourself today may not look like how you love on yourself at 55, 60,
Right,
or in 10 years,
right.
5 years from now. It may look different, and that's okay.
That's okay.
That
That's
is okay.
okay. This
Yeah.
was good.
Yeah. Very good conversation. I appreciate it. Um, that's all I got to say, man. Keep a regal mindset. Do you have anything else?
No, I think we set the stage for people to really start looking at self love in a different perspective. It's not what you do to yourself, it's how you feel about yourself, how you show up to yourself. That's all. That's what self love is.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
all about self.
Yep. And offer yourself a little grace from here and there when you don't
Just a little.
necessarily meet your mark that
Just a
you have.
little.
Yeah, for the expectations that you have maybe set for yourself. You got it. If God willing, you'll get another day.
The only people that don't give you grace is your mortgage. Everybody else give you a grace period.
Yeah. Well, that
Your mortgage
that
don't
is,
give you a grace period. It's on the first. It's due on the first.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
But your credit card give you a couple of days.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. All right. Well, thank you so much again. If you have or are watching this show, please like, click, and share the content. There's someone that needs to hear this conversation, right? That they may find value in it. If you found value in it, please put some fire emojis in the chat, whether you're watching a reel, something on social media, Facebook, on a YouTube, whichever. Please like, click, and share. And
And
until
sign
next
up for
time,
notifications so
yeah.
you can know when we're always going live.
Absolutely. Until next time, we will see you and keep a regal mindset.